Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back. Kellen here again with Droid Life. So Galaxy S20, we are fully invested. We are engulfed, something like that, in the Galaxy S20 at this point. We've unboxed it. Hopefully you watched that. But now it's time to talk about how we can get the most out of this guy. So we know your orders are probably arriving at any moment. So when you open that out of the box, here are the first 10 things to do with your Galaxy S20. If you're new around these parts, first of all, welcome. But if you don't know what first 10 things is, this is a series we've been doing for years now. And it's sort of like the ultimate setup tour where we show you the first 10 things or areas you should kind of set your focus the minute you pull your phone out of the box so that you can just start getting the most right away. This isn't necessarily tips and tricks, but it's a bunch of settings and things we like to tweak right away that you hopefully will never have to adjust again, and you'll just enjoy your phone. So the first thing we almost always tell you is this whole setup here, security. Get your security right immediately. So we're talking lock screen, fingerprint. I've also got face unlock. You can see that thing spinning up there. It's because it's looking for my face. So in order to set all these things up, you will go into settings, and you'll probably do this the minute you walk through setup, and don't skip it. Set up your fingerprints, set up your face unlock, set up a secure lock, because it's just important. People like to steal phones. You might lose your phone, leave it behind, whatever. Get yourself ready. Anyway, so I'm up here in settings, or I went up here into settings, and lock screen is where you get to choose. So screen lock type, you can see I've got a pattern obviously, but you could do a PIN or a password. Definitely don't do none or swipe. Those are not secure. And then I also have with my screen lock set up to look for my face and also to let me unlock with fingerprints. So the reason I point those out is because I'm going to show you where to set up your face, where to set up your fingerprints. But if for some reason you don't want your lock screen to unlock with your face or unlock with a fingerprint, you can actually toggle those on and off. Here, I'll just show you actually. So if I don't want fingerprints to be a part of my lock screen, and I go on, you'll notice there's no fingerprint there. It's not asking for one because that no longer works. So it'll only scan my face or ask for my password. And you can do that with face too. If you want face unlock on there for authenticating payment apps or something like that, but not your lock screen, just uncheck that box right there. So anyway, you've got your secure lock set up. Now we're actually going to back out and go into biometrics and security. And so this is where you tap face recognition. It'll ask for whatever your pattern or password is, and then it'll walk you through how to set up your face unlock. And it's super easy. You tap the setup button. It'll show a camera where you put your face. It'll scan it in about 3 seconds and you're good. It's incredibly simple, and it is just a nice way to bypass your lock screen pretty quickly. I'm just being honest here. So I like to use it. I know some will probably argue it's not the most secure thing in the world, but it works pretty well. And at least, hey, there's require eyes to be open. Google fixed that one yet? I didn't think so. There's some settings in here for your face though. You can have it stay on the lock screen. So what that means is it'll scan your face and you'll see the little lock up at the top unlock, but it'll stay on the lock screen and still require you to swipe. If you uncheck that and it scans your face, it'll just unlock and go right to the last place you left off. These are sort of those user preferences. I'll let you kind of decide where you want to take that. So there's just some extra settings in here, and I'll let you sort of dive into those. The other thing then is fingerprints. So fingerprints, you can set up multiple fingers. You can see I've got 3. I think I did both thumbs. Since it's in the screen, I went with both thumbs, and then I think I did this index finger because I often use it when it's laying on a desk. So set those up in there. You can also find some settings for Samsung Pass and Samsung Pay if you want to be able to use fingerprints for those things as well. That's sort of it. So again, screen lock, face, finger. If you don't want to do the face, I get it. At least do your fingerprint. These secure things they're convenient, secure features. So you should just, make sure you have all those set up. From there, we're actually going to start talking about customizing stuff. So sort of focusing still on that lock screen, we're going to set up your always on display. So you actually go into lock screen again, and there's an always on display section. So always on display, if you don't know what I'm talking about, it is that. So when my phone's locked in asleep like this, I still see the clock, date, battery, notifications. I love that. You don't have to turn this on, and you may be worried about it draining battery, but it's one of those features that was introduced to Android years ago that I think is one of the most important. I love it. I love just being able to glance at my phone and seeing useful information. So I turn it on. There's also a couple of different settings in here. If you don't want it on all the time, you can have it set to tap to show. So if you're worried again about battery, you can have it tap to show where it won't show until, well, you tap on it. And then it'll wake up and show. So you could do that. Maybe you want to save some battery. I like mine always showed. Or you can have it show as scheduled, where you actually set a schedule for it to go off and on. Maybe you don't want it on at night or something like that. There's also some clock stuff in here, so you can set up a different clock. I think out of the box is this one. I went with the centered approach. You can set up some brightness on it if you want it to be able to rotate, that sort of stuff, even if you want music to show. There's a bunch of settings in there, but again, this is where you find always on display. Big fan of the features. So, yeah, give it a look. One other thing to point out there, though, is if we're in lock screen, and this is sort of related to that. See the notifications? It's in a separate thing. It's not in always on, but it's just under the general lock screen settings area. There's this notification. So if you want your notifications to show up on your lock screen and in that always on display, you want to have this turned on. Out of the box, it will be set to icons only, which if I show you here, see how they're just little, well, if I double tap to wake. See how there's just little baby icons here? If you want to actually see notifications, change the view style over to details. And then if you double tap to wake, you'll see they expand and you can actually see them. Kind of a neat little trick there you might want to. They show as little icons and always on display, but then you sort of wake your phone, you'll get the full expanded thing so you can deal with notifications right there. Some other stuff here, you can adjust transparency, reverse the text color, things like that, depending on your wallpaper mostly. Yeah, so anyway, in the lock screen section, always on display, notifications, couple of things there you'll want to manage. Moving right along here, then we're actually going to back up and go into this display setting area. So display, and the big thing we're going to talk about with this tip is this motion smoothness. So this phone, one of the few phones on the planet, well, the entire Galaxy S20 line is one of the few sets of phones on the planet that has a 120 hertz refresh rate. Just means how smooth your experience could be on your phone. That's the basic way to put it, how smooth the experience could be on your phone. Out of the box, it comes set at 60, which is normal. Your phone probably has 60, unless you have a OnePlus 7 or 7T or a Pixel 4 or 4 XL or one of a few random obscure gaming phones. Your phone probably is 60, and you probably didn't notice. You probably are just used to that, but when you ramp up to 120, I'm telling you, and you won't be able to see this on camera, but it will smooth everything out in your menu system, all of that, and some supported apps, even just scrolling and things like Twitter. I swear I can tell it just looks smoother. So if you want to turn that on, this is where it is. It could drain battery a little bit faster than 60 hertz, so it's kind of up to you. There's also one other trade-off. If you set it to 120 hertz, you can't use the full quad HD resolution. It actually drops the resolution down on the phone to 1080p. I don't think you'll really notice much of a difference, but keep that in mind. But anyways, this is where that setting sits. All right, so staying in display stuff here, you should just go through almost every single one of these because they're all quite important to your experience. So the first thing is light or dark mode. So obviously a dark mode changes everything to black. It's very good to use at night or when you're in low light situations. I'm going to leave it light for this video, but you can set up a schedule for this. So you can say I actually have a schedule set to come on at 7 p.m. and turn off at 7 a.m. So that means 7 p.m. it turns to dark mode. You can set a schedule if you'd like, or you can manually toggle it on and off with see this shortcut right here? Oops. See this shortcut right there? Dark mode. You'll have one of those. And we'll talk about shortcuts in a little bit. So set that up because dark mode, it really, really is handy. It turns a lot of your apps black and it really will help with eye strain. Here's your brightness slider. Here's your adaptive brightness. I would go ahead and leave adaptive brightness on. It says keep track of your brightness adjustments and apply them automatically in similar lighting conditions. So it's kind of one of those things where it's just learning from you and how you like your phone set as brightness. There again is that motion smoothness. Blue light filter, you might not know what this is, but you can see if I toggle that on, everything sort of turns to this amberish color. Here I can really go crazy with it. You see that? Removing blue light is thought to ease eye strain, maybe help you relax more at night, go to bed easier and things like that since we stare at our phone all the time. Again, you can turn this on at a schedule or from sunset to sunrise. Completely up to you. I think it's a pretty handy thing to use at night. Screen mode, I would go in and decide how you want this to look. This is just how the screen displays colors. So out of the box, it goes to vivid. You can switch it to natural, which is kind of kills color. I mean, look, if we're having fun, we're on vivid, right? And you can adjust the coolness or warmth of that as well. Here's your screen resolution. So again, if you are at 60 hertz, you can go all the way up to quad HD. If you're at 120 hertz, you are stuck there at full HD. If we continue to scroll, that's most of the important stuff. There is a touch sensitivity option here if you're wearing like gloves or something like that, or a screen protector, I should say. There's also this accidental touch protection. So if your phone's in your pocket and you're constantly seeing it waking up and doing weird things while it's in your pocket, you may want to toggle that on. It'll try to reduce that. I had mine on out of the box and it kept saying to me, we're recognizing lots of weird touches, and there were no weird touches. And so I actually turned it off. It's kind of up to you if you want to use that or not. So the last little area of focus in this display section is this one, navigation bar. So out of the box, your phone actually probably comes like this with the old school Android 3 button setup of back, home, and app switcher. Since this phone's running Android 10 and Google for Android introduced full screen gestures, Samsung included those. So I was using these out of the box. I'm not going to sit here and tell you which one you should use. I've been using gestures because that's where Android is going. That's what Google introduced and everyone's now adopting that. But some people are still keeping the 3 buttons, so feel free to use those. If you just want to use 3 buttons, do it. If you want to see where Android's going, feel free to use gestures. Just real quickly, how do you use these gestures? Well, you swipe up and that takes you home. You can swipe up and hold for a second and that brings you into the app switcher. You can swipe in from the edge and that goes back. So instead of having a back button, you actually just swipe in and that goes back. And that's kind of the basics of it. So you can actually swipe along down here on the nav bar, this little mini nav bar, and it'll let you switch between apps. That is a thing. But again, swipe up and hold takes you into the app switcher. And then again, you have a little back thing there. I'm not going to tell you which one's better. The navigation gestures certainly have their issues. Just understand it is an option. Next up then, let's talk a little bit about sounds. So if we go into just one back, we're still in settings here. Sounds and vibrations, lots of stuff to tweak in here. Again, this is one of those things where you should go through and see which parts of it you like and don't like. But here's your ringtone and your notification, your system sounds, those are all fine. If you tap on volume, this is where you can adjust 5 different volume settings from your ringtone to your media to notifications to system to Bixby voice. There's also a toggle down here to have your volume button adjust either ringtones or media. So I think out of the box it actually does ringtones first. Since we're on that page, it won't let me. So you can see it's adjusting ringtone volume. If you go in there and toggle that, and I back up and I adjust, you can see now it's doing media volume. You can also adjust this by tapping this and switching it there. I don't know if you can see that. So if I'm doing volume stuff, there's a little pop-up there with a little arrow goes down. You can adjust things there as well. So I like to control media volume. I don't use my ringer very much, so I actually like to set it as that. Samsung does some fun things too, where you can set a vibration pattern. So rather than just a basic call, and I obviously can't hear that's vibrating in my hand, but you can change these and it'll sort of match what these actually are described as. So TikTok, it goes TikTok, like a little vibration in your hand. Anyway, play with those, fine when you like. This is a really handy one though, vibration intensity. So incoming calls, I have my vibration cranked pretty full so that if I'm across the room and it vibrates, I hear it since I don't use much sound on my phone. But notifications, when those come in, I don't really want it vibrating my entire desk. So I actually turn that down quite a bit. And then touch interaction, depending on just how you're touching things and feeling that vibration, you can control that sensitivity as well. Some other things in here are like sound quality and effects. You can turn on Dolby Atmos in here. Also for gaming, there's also an equalizer you can play with to really customize your sound. So anyway, sound settings. So this next section, we're going to back up here and scroll just a little bit until we find advanced features. See that right there? This is where you kind of find the cool toys to play with on your phone. This section also might get quite long, so hang with me. So these are just the sort of, I don't know that they're really advanced, but they're just some of the tricks that your phone will be able to do. And Samsung's included this in phones for years now. But I'll focus on just a few, but I'll let you go in here and kind of play with the rest of the stuff. Number one, though, is side key. So side key, they're talking about this right here, your power button. So out of the box, if you long press on this, you can see mine shows the power menu. Out of the box though, it typically set to wake Bixby. So Bixby is Samsung's weird assistant that I just am going to completely ignore. So I try not to use it. I use Google Assistant. Look, if you're a Bixby guy, I get it. Feel free to Bixby up the world. I don't use it, so I turn it off. So I switched it to power menu. I like to be able to hold my power button and have it get to a power menu versus Bixby. So that's press and hold. The double press you should leave as quick launch camera, because that means double pressing launches your camera. That is still the fastest way to get into your camera and has been for years. So make sure you leave that on. If you don't want that, you can set it to open just about any app or even Bixby if you want. Bixby Routines, though, as I just stomped all over Bixby's life, I will say Bixby Routines might be something you want to pay attention to. Why I say that too is these aren't really Bixby Assistant related. They're just more of phone and situational related. So you don't really have to fire up Bixby to do them. It just kind of does them depending on what you're up to. So if you leave that on, you tap on Bixby Routines. Here we go. Good morning. What this is a routine that would run in the morning. So you could set a specific time, like say 7 a.m. to turn your always on display on, change your lock screen shortcuts, and fire up a Spotify playlist. You could have one for work. So based on your location, it'll change your phone to vibrate, turn your Wi-Fi on, and change your lock screen shortcuts once again. There's also a before bed one that mutes things and turns your blue light filter and adjusts brightness and dark mode. You can see these are quite involved if you really want them to be. There's a heading home one. This one, when you're driving, actually would probably really come in handy. You can specify the Bluetooth device you want it to connect to, which would be your car, and then it'll turn Dolby Atmos on, lock your screen rotation, read notifications aloud. You could probably have it fire up Spotify. So these are actually kind of cool. Some of these you just may want to look at and play with. Most of them out of the box require you to at least set the first one. Like they've set up some shells for you and you can change all of this stuff. And then the first thing, you obviously have to set a time before it'll start running. So they're set up as templates for you to just sort of implement on your own. But anyway, those are actually kind of cool. Good job with that aspect there, Bixby. Some other things here: call and text on other devices and link to Windows. Kind of some cool features Samsung's done where call and text on other devices means you can set it up to, say, on your Galaxy Tab or some other Samsung phone. You could set it up to receive calls and texts there that would normally be coming into this phone. Linking to Windows, I'm assuming this is, I use Mac, so I'm just saying, I'm assuming the Windows Your Phone app, which allows you to get text messages and see photos and stuff like that on your Windows computer. Pretty sure this just links to that. If you tap on this to set it up, it asks you to set up a Microsoft account. That's what that is. So if you're a Windows user, you might want to take advantage. Some of the stuff I'm going to ignore, but I will dive in and show you screenshots in here. There are some tools for taking screenshots. You just tap volume down and power at the same time. That takes a screenshot. When it says screenshot toolbar, it's talking about this thing down here, which lets you do continuous scroll and edit screenshots quickly. There's also some screen recorder settings, so you can screen record up to 1080p, include media sounds in the microphone. If you do want to do a screen recording, there's just a shortcut you will find up here. Again, we'll get to this in just a little bit, but that is how you quickly do screen records on your phone. One of the things I almost always turn on with Samsung phones is reduce animation. Reduce animation just means all those zooming in and out of folders and apps that Samsung phones do. That stuff just gives me a headache. So I turn reduce animations on and things just kind of happen much more snappy. There's some game stuff in here in a one-handed mode. I do like motions and gestures though. For example, double tap to wake, you saw me use earlier. If you double tap on your phone when it's locked, it'll wake up. Lift to wake takes that a step further. When you pick your phone up, it'll actually wake it because it notices that you picked it up. I turn that off because I always worry that it does weird things in my pocket, but it's up to you. Give that a shot. Palm swipe to capture is just another way to do screenshots. You just swipe across your screen and it'll do that. Some of these are pretty self-explanatory. They've been around for years. But anyway, this advanced feature section, there's a lot going on, but these are some of the really cool tricks that your Samsung Galaxy S20 could do. All right, let's finally head over to the home screen. Let's set up some home screen stuff. So there's some basic stuff that applies here. Obviously, long press. Well, first of all, swiping up gets you into your app drawer, and then you swipe left to right to get between your apps. That's pretty familiar. But long pressing gets you into your sort of setup screen for it. You can also pinch on that. That might be even the easier way. And within there, you can scroll and see the different pages you have set up. You can add pages, set one to be your actual home screen. You can delete pages. Over here is this weird Samsung Daily thing I'll show you in a second. Obviously down here you have shortcuts to wallpaper, themes, widgets, and other home screen settings. So if you want to change your wallpaper or your theme, you want to add widgets and then just change some of the settings. So the first thing I'm going to do though is go over here. So Samsung Daily, I'll just show you. Swipe over here. There's this thing, I have airplane mode on so you can't see it, but Samsung Daily is this weird, it's sort of like that Google Now, Google Discovery screen you get on Pixel phones where it shows you some information. It's very weird. Just turn it off. just turn it off. And that's how you do. And now you can see I don't have to deal with it anymore. Hey, maybe you'll like it and you might use it. I've turned it on for a day and that was about all I could handle. Anyway, so let's pinch in here and go into home screen settings because there's some things in here you might want to tweak. Let's say you don't want an app drawer. If you don't want an app drawer, you just say home screen only, and that will put all of your apps across pages on your home screen. Be careful before you do that. Make sure you understand what I'm talking about here. If you have home and app screens, that's the way I have it set up right now where I swipe up and get in my app drawer. If you turn that off, all of your apps will go onto your home screen, so be careful, but that's how that sort of gives you that iPhone app jukebox experience if you want to do that. You can adjust your home screen grids out of the box. I think it's 4x5, and in your app drawer is 4x5. I changed mine to 5x5 just to tighten things up. Let me add some more apps in there. If you want an apps button, so for some reason, if you don't like swiping up to get into your app drawer, that's what that apps button thing is. If you toggle that, you'll get an app drawer button. Not going to do that. Ignore these things. Well, lock home screen layout. That's actually a pretty good thing to do. Once you have your home screen all set up, it's a good idea to just tap that so that you're not accidentally dragging things around and moving things around. It'll just lock it all in place. Maybe your kid likes to play with your phone, right? One thing for sure you should toggle on is swipe down for notifications. So when I'm on this screen, like think if you have a Galaxy S20 Ultra that's like this big, right? Instead of reaching all the way up here to swipe down, I can just swipe down wherever, and that brings that down. I can swipe up to get into my app drawer, and I can swipe down to get into that. So that's what that option is, and you should most definitely toggle that on. That's pretty much it in there. You guys know how to set up a home screen. You just drag, I have it locked. You press and hold to drag icons, and you can move them wherever, right? You guys know how to do all of that stuff. I don't think I need to show you that. Okay, we're not going to show you that. Let's jump up here though. So notification panel, out of the box, it probably looks sort of like this. You have this setup, media and devices shortcuts up here. We're going to change all of this. So the most important thing is these 6 icons up here. So I have like Wi-Fi, auto rotate, do not disturb, blue light filter, night mode, and battery. Those are the 6 I chose to be there because they're the 6 that show up first. And so they're the ones that I'm going to use the most. You swipe down again and you get to see all of them. And Samsung, there are so many shortcuts in here. You're going to want to edit this. So in order to do that, you tap this button and then you go to button order. And button order, this is where you just long press on these things and drag them around into whatever order you want. And that's how I got my first 6 in the order I want. So first 6 again are the key. They're the first 6 that show in the first swipe down, right? Does that make sense? Do those. Then after that, you can kind of adjust whatever you want. If there's some things you don't want here, like I have no idea what kids' home is, I'm just going to put it up here and then it goes away. So keep that in mind. Click done when you're done and that'll save it. And there we go. We're all saved up. A couple other things though. We tap this again. Quick panel layout. The quick panel layout, let me just back up. The quick panel layout is this. See these shortcuts for media and devices? I can't tell you that I've ever used those there, so I like to get rid of them, and I like to put my brightness slider there in its place, where the brightness slider now I can only see if I do the full swipe down. So again, quick panel layout, I'm going to put brightness on top and get rid of show media. So when I do that, now when I swipe down, those media shortcuts are gone, and now I can adjust my brightness on the fly at any time without having to do this extra swipe down. See that move? So again, that was there, quick panel layout. Next thing then I would say is status bar. So if you go into status bar, I toggled on show battery percentage. Out of the box probably looks like that, and that battery icon is so tiny you have no idea what your battery percentage is. So turn that on, it'll show you battery percentage. Again, it's up to you. The other thing is to show notification icons. I'm talking about these icons over here. You can have it show a number instead of how I swiped them all the way. Sorry. You can have it show a number. So if you have 10 notifications sitting there, it'll show a 10. Or you can just have it show the most recent 3, or all of them just means it's not trying to reorder by the most recent 3. I'm just going to leave it as that. But anyway, this is one of those areas that you control a lot of things on your phone from. So I really like to get it customized and simplified and set to this like perfect experience to make it more efficient. And that's usually setting those 6, making sure your brightness slider is handy. So our final area of focus now is the camera. So the camera, double tap on your power button will launch right into that. Not going to tell you how to take pictures. We're just going to show you some setup things that you may want to tweak right now. So first of all, let's bring something in as a subject here. So on the bottom here, these are your shortcuts to jump between the 3 lenses. So the middle double tree looking icon there is your standard or wide lens. If you want your ultra wide, it's the 3 trees. And if you want your telephoto, it's the single tree. At the bottom, you'll notice there's additional zoom choices, so you can zoom in up to 30x. I'm not sure why you would really want to go that far. It's not going to look good, but that's how you easily jump between those, if that makes sense. The next thing though is all of these modes down here. Out of the box, you have single take, photo, video, and more. Well, we're going to go over to more because I like live focus, which are basically your portrait bokeh shots. I like live focus video because it does the same thing in video. And then I like night shots. There's also some other things here like pro mode. If you want those as shortcuts down there, you can do that. You just long press and drag them onto this bottom bar. So I'm going to drag night mode down there as well. And even live focus video, we'll put it over here at the end. So now I have those. I click save, and I can scroll through these without having to hit more. So now they are basically shortcuts. Kind of cool, right? If you put something there that you don't like, you can go over to more and tap this pencil and long press on it and drag it up and then save it. And then you're good there. So make sure you set up your favorite shortcuts. Single take, I don't really want to talk too much about it, but it's basically like you tap the shutter button and Samsung starts suggesting you wiggle around and move and do all these things, and it runs through its set of features and then presents to you like 15 different photo options of whatever the scene was. Could be fun. I don't know. Let's go up here though into settings. So top left corner, this is your setting stuff. I turn scene optimizer on. Basically it says it uses Bixby to automatically optimize your shots for the scene. What I suggest you do is you take some photos with it on and some with it off and see if you like the looks or which one you like the looks of. I kind of don't want it to process my stuff in weird ways, so I'm going to turn that off. Shot suggestions, on-screen guides to help you line up great shots. Sure, feel free. Scanning QR codes, I would definitely leave on. How often have you seen a QR code and been like, how do I scan this? Well, you can do it with your Samsung camera. If we scroll down here, here's your video size options. So you can record in 8K if you want. I think videos are limited to about 5 minutes there, so be careful. But Samsung goes all the way through 60 frames per second in 4K. You can drop that down to whatever you want. It does the same in the selfie camera. Well, no 8K, but you can do 60 frames in the selfie camera. Advanced recording options, high efficiency video. It is essentially like a codec, I believe, where it just tries to save space. It tries to record more efficient video that doesn't take up so much space on your phone. Feel free to try off and on and see what you think about the quality of your videos. It's kind of up to you there. Auto HDR, leave on. Tracking autofocus is fun. It's where you tap on a subject that you want to focus on, and then as it moves or you move, it sticks with that subject. It's probably off out of the box. I turned mine on because I'm a big fan of it. I like grid lines because I like to be able to line up shots. Here's how you turn off or on location tags for the photos you take. And that is pretty much it. I know this video was incredibly long, but you should now have your $1,000 phone set up and ready to dominate. If you have comments, questions, we are Droid Life. Let us know. Peace.